Okay, back to the dinim of washing. Okay, so we discussed yesterday how you wash. You pick it up on your right, give it to the left, pour it 3 times over the right. Then you do the same thing to the left. And you have to make sure that your hands, when they're wet, washed, don't try to touch somebody else's hand that didn't wash yet, or your other hand, because then it's going to make a problem of you're going to have to rewash again. By the way, I don't remember exactly what I said yesterday. If there's no water and you dip your hands into a river, a kosher mikvah, the Alter Rebbe holds you should really make al shtifas yadayim. I remember if it said yesterday, tfilas yadayim shtif, but the Alter Rebbe holds the proper bracha would be if you dip your hands in a mikvah or in like an ocean. You make the bracha al shtifas yadayim, but again, if you said al natilas yadayim, al tfilas yadayim, it would still be good. What? Shtifas. Shtifa means wetting your hands. That would also be the okay. Now, water, it's a very interesting thing. In the morning when you wake up, let's say you have negel wasser by your bed, yeah?
What is that?
And by mistake, you're half asleep and you don't aim right and you stick your fingers into the water. By mistake, you stick your fingers in the water. So that water is disqualified to wash the netilas yadayim in the morning, because you made the water tummy. The only way the tumah comes off your hands in the morning is when you wash alternately. But if you stick your hands into the water, so then the problem is you make the water no good. By netilas yadayim for bread, it doesn't matter. By netilas yadayim for bread, as long as you don't do work with the water. In other words, let's say somebody put their hands in the water and wash their hands with it, or they wash the dish with it. That water cannot be used for netilas yadayim. If malacha, work was done with the water, just touching the water is not a problem.
Why is it a
Huh?
problem? Because your hands are not tamei.
It's not tamei. It's a whole different concept.
It's a ritual.
It's a ritual more than tum. In the morning, there's mamash shurachara on the hand. So a person has to be careful not to do malacha with the water that you're planning to do, washing until yadayim. So in other words, let's say you have a tub in the sink full of dishes. Okay, and you don't have water. So now you're going to take the water from the dishes that you wash the dishes and wash them to yadayim. It's no good because the water, it's possible. It's if you didn't wash. Now, what happens now if the water changed colors because of a certain, let's say, dye that fell into the water, or a certain coloring that discolored the water, that water is also not kosher to wash until yadayim. By the way, there's another interesting din that if you don't find it too much, and the Alter Rebbe also alludes to it, but can you wash until yadayim with hot water? Does it have to be dafka cold water, or can it even be hot water? So, for instance, by mayim achreinim that you wash before you're benching, in Shulchan Aruch it says hot water is not good. In fact, according to certain opinions, if it's the temperature of spit, which is 98.6, body temperature, it's also not good. That to make it more. But hot water you can't use for mayim achreinim because it doesn't take off that melach's demis, that salt. But netilas yadayim for bread, you're allowed to wash with hot water, warm water, hot water. That's not a problem. The Rambam says, I mean, that's the halacha that you're allowed to wash with hot water, but not for mayim achreinim you can't use. Any water that's not fit for a dog to drink, like very, very salty water, it's also possible netilas yadayim. But let's say the ocean water, it's salty, but I think dogs do drink from the ocean water. They don't? Huh?
It's not drinkable.
I know, but dogs don't. Again, it says clearly if it's salty, it is, muluchim, yeah. Unless you heat up the water, then you could, but yeah, what?
Regarding my Rabbonim, is it a halacha, is it a minhag, is it a must to do it, or can you not do it, or can you do something else instead of not doing it?
It's Chabad.
Can you rub your hand against the dirt or you can't? So you, the tira,
There is,
if you don't have water.
in halacha, there's three waters. Mayim rishonim, mayim emtsoim, and mayim achreinim. This is in Shulchan Aruch. Okay, in Yoredeya. Well, mayim rishonim achreinim is in Orachaim, but the other one's also in Yoredeya a lot. And that is as follows. The water that you use to wash for bread is called mayim rishonim. That's a mitzvah with the Rabbanim. Then you have in the time of the Gemara, people are not makbid, and I'll say why in a minute. You have what's called mayim emtsoim. Mayim emtsoim was between the fish course and the meat course, you had an obligation to wash your hands. Why? Because fish and meat are dangerous. Like we learned, you're not allowed to eat them together. And the olden times, people ate primarily with their hands. So you touch fish with your hands, and then you touch meat with your hands, so you're on your fingers, you have fish and meat together. So they made you have to wash the hands. That's mayim emtsoim. Then you have mayim achreinim. So why are they lenient today on it? Because today, generally speaking, people don't eat with their hands. They eat with a fork and a knife. So you're not really touching the meat and the fish. We have napkins, you clean your hands. So people are very makel in mayim emtsoim, the middle waters. Now concerning mayim achreinim, the Gemara says, was not a mitzvah, but it was because of sakana, dangerous. Because there were, in the olden times, they used to have what was called melech's demis. Melech's demis, we say it in davening every day. Melech's demis means a sodomite salt that was very, very powerful. You used to use it in the food. And if you touch your eyes with it, God forbid, you can go blind. It was a very practical thing. It's very powerful, dangerous salt. So therefore, the Chachamim instituted that you must wash mayim achreinim. That's sakana, which is stricter than mayim rishonim. Mayim rishonim mitzvah drabanan, but this is chamura sakanta mi isura. Danger is stricter than isur and heter. So now, why are people makel today in mayim achreinim? So poskim, right? Because today we don't use the melech's demis. We don't use the melech's demis. Because we don't use the melech's demis, there's no need to do mayim achreinim. That's why a lot of people are very lenient today in mayim achreinim. According to Kabbalah, it's a very important thing to do mayim achreinim. According to Kabbalah, it's very important. In fact, in Tavshin Beis, there's a sikha from the previous Rebbe. The Rebbe writes, the Rebbe alludes to it, the Rebbe brings down the sikha in the Haggadah Shel Pesach, but he doesn't say this detail. He does. That you don't use, according to Kabbalah, you don't use silver, mayim achreinim. La'asad lava, you'll be able to use it, but now the Rebbe, the Friedrich Rebbe writes, you don't use silver for mayim achreinim. Many people just use a simple glass, whatever. So the reason why people are lenient today in halacha is because there's no melech's demis. There's no such salt, so therefore there's no reason to do mayim achreinim. Kabbalistically, there's a very big inyan. You have the ruach tumah and all that to do mayim achreinim. Now, if you notice, many places, many people have a minig that when they wash mayim achreinim, then they'll take the wet hands and they'll put it over their lips. Okay? Except the Rebbe writes, by Pesach you don't do it because of gebraks, unless the last day of Pesach, then we put again, the Rebbe writes, then you re-put the hands, the wet hands over the lips. Why do they put the hands over the lips? So that's a different reason. There's a story in the Gemara that a guy once went over to somebody's wife and he said to her that your husband told me to lend me 1,000 gold coins, whatever. And the proof of it that I'm saying the truth is because he ate eggs for breakfast. Okay? What happened was, it wasn't true. So the wife gave the guy $1,000 and he was a ganef. He ripped him off, and so the husband killed his wife or whatever. It was a pretty bad thing that happened. What happened? The guy ate eggs for breakfast and it was still on his lips. So the guy came and said, your wife said you should give me 1,000 gold coins, and the proof of it is he ate eggs for breakfast. So one of the reasons you do this is to wipe off in case there's any symbols. What?
I see some people just barely wet their fingers, I don't know that.
You don't, you have to wet the bottom of the fingers.
So you do it.
And it has to go downward, it can go upward.
At least the nails, right?
Yeah. What? Yeah, that's,
So you don't need to pick up.
and you don't put it over a sink, you put it in a keli, and you take off the keli from the table unless if the keli is covered. What?
You can't do it over the sink.
You could, as long as there's no dishes in the sink. And you don't want the water either, you turn on the water to wash it down a little bit. That's the, what?
That the vessel itself cannot be metal, is it such thing?
I said silver.
Still,
Some people are machma metal too, but really the Friedrich Rebbe writes the word silver.
but if it's silver plated.
Some do, some don't. What can I
Remember
tell?
silver, chrome, use gold.
Again, some people don't use metal at all.
Oh,
But really, the Friedrich Rebbe writes about, it really should be about kesef. Okay.